Do you have a dream? Do it now. Wanting to help others, create what we need. A community which has been captured by the imaginations of female Hyrox athletes around the globe. Hello and welcome to On the Rox podcast with me, Coach Marshy. Hope you are all well. And on recording of this today, we are just a few days away from London XL. And on that note, and from that initial intro, we're going to welcome today's guest into the show. Welcome the founder of the Rox Queens, Caitlin. Hello, Caitlin. How are you?
Hello. I'm good, thank you. So excited to be here.
No, it's great to have you, Caitlin. And we'll just give the guys a little bit of background to start with. We kind of got introduced via one of my coaches at my gym, Carol. And obviously I'd seen the work you had started doing with Rox Queens. And I really want to kind of understand where this started, why you did it, what your why is. And that's cheesy because that's everywhere all across the internet right now is what's your why. But I want to really understand it and really understand what it is that you were looking to create and your background as well. So let's start with you as an athlete, as a person. Who are you and why did you get into sort of the side of Hyrox?
Okay, yes. So I've always been into sports, I think from a young age, particularly with running. That was my kind of go-to sport, long distance running. I think, didn't realize it at the young age, but it was kind of my way of coping with becoming a teenager and all the different sort of challenges and mental health struggles that brings. And I found that actually it was my passion. There was something in fitness. It was more than just the physical side of it. But I shut that door for a while. I kind of followed the traditional path, corporate job, sort of did what I thought I should do. And then pre-COVID, had an opportunity. I'd sort of been doing lots of classes at F45. And I remember talking to the owner of one of the F45s and just kind of getting a sense of, could there be an opportunity there to be more involved? Because that was the first time I'd really seen the power of community at its best. Local town, you move there and suddenly you can meet new friends and you've got people coming together for 45 minutes. And there's something quite special about the fact I remember talking to people before a class, coming with their stress of the day, and then you meet them after and they're just a different person and they've had this time, no phones, just to kind of focus on themselves, and saw that all happen and wanted to be involved. And it was at that point that I then took the leap and sort of went into fitness, had a job as a studio manager at F45. And whilst doing that and doing my F45 training, I met somebody called Simon, who is our Rox King, who I know that you know very well. And I remember we were F45 obsessed, but he said to me, there is a new race that I think you have to try, that you're going to love, that I would love to train for you. And it's called Hyrox. And I was like, oh, Hyrox. And he was like, yes, you're going to love it. And that was about 2 years ago now. And that's kind of where it started. So like everybody, sort of did my first one as let's just see where I'm at fitness wise. Had that sort of epiphany of, wow, I'm sort of maybe not where I thought I was, but loved the experience. Got a sort of, sense of purpose for training towards a goal, and then wanted to book my next. And so from that point onwards, decided to take Hyrox more seriously, get a coach. And this was about a year ago now. And I found myself following an online program, which, Hyrox does require you to do the sort of same exercises every week, and was finding it a little bit isolating. know, at the time, Hyrox wasn't as big as it is now. So when I'd speak to my friends who weren't doing it, they couldn't quite relate to sort of the commitment that I had. And I remember this is kind of how Rox Queens started. It was back in February this year. I was on a running track and it was a cold, wet day. And I had been messaging friends prior to going to that track being like, oh, I don't know if I should go. It's horrible weather out there. And they were the ones that were like, actually, yeah, you don't need to. Like, you know, it's a horrible night. Like, go tomorrow. And it was me, myself, that kind of got myself into that. Actually, if I can push through this, if I can show up for that training session, it's going to help me in the long run. But I did that sort of, you know, off my own back. And I was running around this track and I was like, it would be really nice to meet similar people who are in the sport, other females. And the original idea was, I was in London at the time. It would be nice to do a workout every month to meet and just kind of mix up the mundane training and kind of, you know, share in our passion for Hyrox. And so I just WhatsApped a few girls and just kind of said, you know, as a fellow female athlete, don't know how you feel about this, but maybe we could start a WhatsApp group. And I was not expecting the response. So, you know, it soon spiraled that we had people who were interested in joining this group from across the UK. So from Ireland, from the north of the UK, from Scotland. And that is kind of how Rox Queens blossomed, because Hyrox is a sport for everyone across you know, the world now. So it's from that point onwards that we hadn't realized it, but we had found a gap that Hyrox has grown so quickly, but maybe there wasn't a support network for women in particular.
Yeah, no, and if we just unpack that a little bit, if we go back to the whole like F45 and community and training, I think obviously I'm really biased because I own a functional fitness gym, that's well known, but I think from my perspective in the fitness industry, this idea of like lines of treadmills and machines and things like that, it's great, and it's great because it gets people off the sofa, but I would love everyone to experience like the F45 or the Neil Marsh Health and Fitness, whatever it is, the community vibe, because and like F45 are probably the kind of world brand that do that the best in terms of creating a community. And all right, you're going for a workout, but as you've just explained to us, it's a lot more than that. There's a lot more that you get out of it, and then you meet people as well. But I think that community, I would want everyone personally to feel that, because that can create more purpose around your training as well. If you then go with what you said about the idea that Hyrox is given that purpose for that functional training, the two things just, in my opinion, have blossomed. And I don't know what you think, if that, you know, they just go hand in hand now, like that community of functional fitness gyms and Hyrox. I mean, what a marriage, you know, made in heaven, that one. That is, I mean, what do you think to that?
100%, and that's why F45 London is, you know, has come about. There's that total synergy, and you know, F45, there's no mirrors. It's very much about, you know, you as Hyrox is your journey. It's a very open space, and so I do think that it's taught me a lot, and I completely agree with you. Like, there's something very special about the people that decide to come into that space with you and be on that journey. And it's the stories, and it's the same for Hyrox as it is for F45. The people that never thought they'd be getting out of bed before 6 to come to a workout class. But they do because they know their friends are going to be there. They do because they know they're going to feel better. And it's that bigger purpose that I think we're all striving for.
Yeah, and I think, like, you know, in your intro there, that was amazing because you got to the idea that you were just having a WhatsApp group and you just wanted some female friends to go and train with. And I think the bit you said about your friends is important. Now, we love our friends, but the ones that are not involved in this sort of space, it can be really hard to describe what it is you get out of it and what you feel from it, because they just don't experience that. And it's nothing against them, but we all have friends. Anyone who's done this has got friends that would be like, oh yeah, you don't need to go. You don't need to do your track session, like you said. Just in that moment of trying to create a new group, who did you kind of target? Were there people that you already knew that were into this, or was it like people that you found via social networking?
Yeah, so it was a bit of both. It was kind of like a referral scheme, I guess. So I sort of said to people once they joined, would you be able to pass this on to other female athletes, in this space, particularly when we're trying to tap into different locations. And, I think it's very much sort of, I stayed true to the values of why I created it and the problem I was looking to solve. So I sort of was very clear in my messaging of completely understand if this is not for you. Also, it's hard to know location. So if I've not come to the right location, like, can you pass me over to somebody that you know? And I think that is what helped it to grow so quickly. Wasn't selling them anything, just kind of offering a chance for connection. And if they didn't like it, obviously just leave at any time. So that was really effective. And then bringing in ambassadors, that was a game changer. So people who I know very well. And again, I will always be grateful for the support on this journey, because back then, it's not a thing. It's just somebody who is very busy, deciding to give you a chance, and to have this random person who's messaged them, sort of agree to coming on board, completely voluntary, no money. And that was huge, because I couldn't do it by myself. So then you suddenly got this team of people who can manage different locations, who can offer different specialisms of support, and then actually you've got shifting from a group of people to like a community, because I think some of the dangers of the big Hyrox Facebook groups is obviously this maybe lack of specificity, but also I think sometimes there can be misinformation shared, but I think having people who are qualified in the space and kind of can give that reassurance was really effective.
Yeah, and there's we could talk. We said this before we started recording. This episode could be hours long, because I think you got two people sitting here with a passion of kind of people and Hyrox together, and those two things are amazing. And I think let's just timestamp it, because you talked about February 2024. So you talked about February 24 as being that day on the track, and something like Rox Queens now. I think if I said Rox Queens in London this weekend, I think a lot of people would have an idea of what that brand is, but they might not know. They might not know the ins and outs, and they might not know the backstory. So let's say February 24, and then talk to me about April 24. So maybe a 2-month time period. Like, what happened? Because from where we sat, and this is a male, by the way, talking, from where I sat, this thing looked like that one original WhatsApp message that you got with this idea I sent out and pay it forward. It seemed like it absolutely exploded. And then on top of that, which might be a completely different conversation, there was also something that happened to you on the way home from work one night that probably then made it go even bigger. So, tell us a little bit about that. It'd be good for people to understand that kind of initial boom and blow up.
Yeah, definitely. So back in February, I'd say we had maybe 50 to 100 girls. And then at that point, sort of, let's say March, we had an ambassador in the key kind of UK locations. So at that point, we decided we were ready to sort of promote and sort of come together. And that ethos is what's carried us throughout this. So one of the ways that we've been able to reach more people is we often collaborate across our accounts. So we did that. We created a launch video. I had a friend who helped me, and we talked about what we were trying to do and the problems we were looking to solve. And we sort of opened it up and said, anybody, if you'd like to join, please do so. And it was at that point that we started to reach more towards the 500 mark. And then it was around, I'd say, April that we decided to not just meet online, but kind of meet in person, because that was very much what we were looking to do when we first started this. And I think it's really important to have both. So we decided to move into the event space. And this was a whole learning experience, because we have no money and we're trying to negotiate venues, and again wanting to bring in experts. We started to look at people in the industry of Hyrox, kind of who could maybe support us. And I just want to say, like, it gives me goosebumps about how supportive the Hyrox community is. Again, you know, every expert who's helped us on this journey, they do it again voluntary, and that really means a lot. And the first person who we launched with was in London, with George Edwards, who was my coach at the time, and also we did an event in the north with our ambassadors Leah and Nat, and I remember that was the launch event. That was the first time we did it. And, you know, we had like Getty there, which was amazing. Like, she's been a supporter from day one. And we had, I'd say, like 35, 40 girls in the room. And that was the first moment when, seeing people come together, the feedback, I was like, I think we have something here. Like, you know, this is really exciting. And it was one of those pinch me moments, because my mom had sort of been there and part of it, and for her to kind of see that, because, you know, she'd started to see how much was going on behind the scenes. So I think for her to witness that was really special. And then we started to get into a rhythm. So from then until the summer, every month we'd work with, you know, obviously you were incredible. Like, I'll always be grateful for, you know, our connection and the chance to kind of come to your space and to run events there, and to bring in, you know,
you're really welcome, and we'll carry on with you now, but I'm gonna tell you why I did it in a minute. But
okay.
go for it. Carry on.
Yeah, so kind of running monthly events with all different experts. And then I'd say we got to July, and two things happened. So we had the world champs. So that was when we decided to bring people together, and we had like a Rox Queen Villa, which was pretty epic. And having that physical space, and I think that is something that we'll come on to, but like is a thing in my mind that I really want to have in all of this, for it to be like a meaningful, tangible connection, to have that on the ground. So that was pretty epic to do, to have people together come to that. And so you're obviously part of this as well, where Hunter this summer did a tour of gyms across Europe, and you know, similar to yourself, and we spoke about this, it seemed like a incredible opportunity to get someone of that caliber and that inspiring, like, into a space. But I think particularly for the female athletes, I think I really wanted to sort of bring in someone inspiring to learn from the best, and to sort of elevate what we're trying to do. And so that became, as of July, a sort of summer festival. So, you know, I have a lot of respect for Hunter, because we talked a lot about maybe putting a Rox Queen steer on the event. So it became very much a partnership and a festival, and bringing together female athletes, and, you know, having him talk and doing a sort of a workshop. And, you know, we, from the summer just gone, we're at a point where, you know, there was 5,000 members across the world, and that was kind of a real moment where, you know, we could take a step back and be like, okay, this is a community. There is no stopping where this could go. And so from that point onwards, I think for all of us, we've been really trying to ramp it up, and to really like hone in on the value and what we're offering, because it's a startup. It's been quite scrappy. We've been learning as we go, but in amongst that, this story obviously has different chapters. You did mention about an encounter that happened on my way back from work, and I think this is a really important part of the story, which happened around the March time, and it's obviously where I am now, which I'll come on to. But I will tell you about this because I was working for a company in central London, and I would walk every single day across Millennium Bridge because it connects to Waterloo. I'd get my steps in, have my headphones in, and one day, out of pure chance, I decided to work later, and it was maybe like 9 o'clock at night, and headphones in, just kind of I guess being quite open-minded at that time to various different opportunities. And I was on this bridge and I noticed this guy who was trying to stop people, and loads of people, typical London, heads down, too busy. But for
We try
whatever
to
reason,
avoid things like that, don't we? When we're out,
yeah,
we sometimes try to avoid that. But yeah, carry on. Sorry, go on.
100%. And there's so many reasons why I could have walked past. Like, I'm tired, it's late at night, I don't know who this is, I think they're trying to sell me something. But I have always been, similar to you, very much like a sort of open-minded, listen, give somebody the time of day. You never know where it could lead. And I'll always be grateful for that, because it turned out, I didn't know this at the time, but this guy who stopped me is somebody called Simon Squibb, who is known on TikTok for going around asking people on the street 3 simple words, 4 actually: what is your dream? And he is huge. I mean, millions and millions of people watch him, but also are trying to get hold of him because they want this chance to present their dream and their opportunity, and they're always trying to figure out where he is. And it was complete fluke that I bumped into him, and it was a very raw and honest interview, because I didn't know at the time who he was. I remember afterwards, like, being like to my friends, like, I've met this guy, and they were like, what? And I said to him about my dream, and it's a real interesting moment, because I don't know about you, but no one's ever really asked me what's my dream.
No,
Maybe, maybe
same
what do
for
you want?
me. Yeah, no, they've not really asked it. I mean, people kind of skip around it, like I did at the beginning. What's your why?
Yeah,
People
yeah,
talk about that, but they don't talk about like other things that are such. For example, they don't talk about what you want out of it personally, what you think is going to give others if it's relevant, and they never ask the deeper questions. And what is your dream, and do you have a dream? That type of question doesn't get asked. From my experience, doesn't get asked, because everyone wants to know what the why is. Even I did it at the beginning of the episode. So, and that video, because we all saw it, anyone who knew you at the time saw it, and I didn't know who he was actually. And then when I press on him, and I'm like, oh wow, like this is a big thing. Like, this is a big guy, and there's actually some really good stories where he's followed up on that, and I believe he's done that with you as well. It's not, that wasn't the sole time. For example, he captured some content and then off he went and used it for his content purposes. He's actually followed up on this with you, right?
He is, yes. And my dream was to sort of work remotely, to travel, to take the leap. I've always said I wanted to do it. To live in Bali. It's a special place, but it's a place where dreamers are, where like-minded people, they want more, they want to sort of think outside the box. And I've always found that really inspiring. And at the time, I was very much stuck in the sort of traditional path, and it was very much like I'd love to, but there's always a reason why, right? Like, it's not the right time. And it was that moment of like, why are you hesitating? If you want to do this, like, you can make it happen. Like, Rox Queens is online, it's around the world. Obviously, as we know, it's becoming really big in Asia, Indonesia. There's a team on the ground already that can help, like, all this stuff. And it was that moment of like, actually, why not now? And it got 6 million views across TikTok and Instagram. And I had all these people messaging me who I don't know, sort of coming forward to be like, what can we do to help you make this dream happen? Like, and friends and people that I've met throughout my life who saw it and were like, you've inspired me to do something or to take the leap. It doesn't always have to be going to the other side of the world. It can just be, it's something which you've always wanted to do. But it's that idea of, if I can do it, then you can. But I did decide to follow through on the dream. And I remember telling him, and it's funny because one of the first things he said to me was, it's amazing how many people don't, even though they've had this moment. They're still, for whatever reason, caught up in the what ifs. I can't do this now. And so I told him that I was going to move to Bali. I told him why, and he's been incredible. So behind the scenes, as with many things on social media, there's a whole support system. He has a company called the Help Bank, and it's very much about helping entrepreneurs to make their dreams come true and to build their businesses, loads of free resources, support. And so, yeah, so that was good. And yeah, it's very much linked to Rox Queens, because the whole way that I started it was taking that leap. And so I think very much it felt like, in following through with this dream, I was staying true to that ethos that is kind of very much about what Rox Queens is, that you can achieve what you want to, but I guess you feel more supported to do that, because there's this community behind you of people that have got your back. And what's the worst that can happen? You have a bad race, you can, don't worry, you can just book another one, you learn from it. I can get a flight home, but at least there's no regrets that I actually did it.
Yeah, and I like watching that video. So a perspective that, like, I never told you my perspective, but I'll tell you now. Like, I was watching it, and I'd probably found out about Rox Queens just a week or 2 or 3 weeks earlier. So maybe you were more prominent on my socials or whatever. So I definitely saw it sort of as you put it up and as it was out there. And although what your dream was like move to Bali and leaderboards, and the bit where he said, have you got a mortgage? And you said no, and you went to justify it, and then he goes, no, good. And like, it really, all of that, it just all captured my attention even more than what I was already on kind of the Rox Queens head, if you like. We were hosting an event here for Rox Queens, and so it's kind of in my it was in my forefront of my mind. And I was watching this video, and I watched what you said, and I thought, this, although it's not linked directly to Rox Queens, and I think you've said that in terms of like that exact moment, you didn't mention Rox Queens there, the whole, I'm going to do this, I'm going to take a leap, I'm going to make a step forward in the right direction, etc., etc. At the end of the day, people will often ask me, how did I get to the unit that I've got, the gym that I've got? Mm-hmm. And the difference between, say, me and you compared to the people that don't do it is literally just taking a step, in my opinion. And I know that sounds really simplistic, but I think Simon would probably agree with us, would he?
100%, exactly. It is that sort of moment when you decide, actually, yeah, I want more, I'm going to try it. And once you start to think like that, it has a ricochet effect, because with everything that you do, every decision, you kind of take that outlook, and it sort of allows you, from my perspective anyway, to sort of, yeah, just be able to keep going, because it's driven by purpose, and I think that's what's so powerful. But yeah, I've learned a lot from him. Similar ethos to us, give without take. So I think we have also got to where we are because we're always wanting to help others, and I think that kind of pays dividends, because that's what it's all about, I think, and especially in the Hyrox community.
Yeah, people understand the word reciprocation, but they don't understand the law of reciprocity. But I know you do. And I think when I think about how we met, we ended up on a call as a result of my coach here, and one of my coaches at the gym, Carol. She'd spoke to you because you kind of reached out initially in the group. I understand it, that you were looking for potential venues. And Carol sort of came to me and said, what can we do? Could we do this? What can we do, Neil? And the first reaction is, I'll get back to you, Carol, because what I wanted to do is I wanted to understand what it was you did. And the reason I did it was, and I'm happy to say we didn't charge you either on either occasion. The reason that was done was because there were two things that stood out, and I hadn't even spoke to you at this point. Once I spoke to you, it massively confirmed it as well. But what stood out to me was you did something very in common that I'd done 10 years ago, which was create something that you needed. And then from there, it organically grew and became something. So the aim wasn't necessarily to end up where you are now, but it became that because you did something that you needed. So that stood out. And this was really early days in Rox Queens still, but it was big. And I was like, wow, she actually did something that she needed to do for her own kind of training, her own support network. But the important thing to me is that you paid it forward without any expectation of getting anything back for it. Like you said, you got those volunteers, and you You did it, though. You all did it for free. And I could tell this just from that video that you put out of you walking around the track, and what you'd written. And it was, you remember it now. It's an old video, but it's something that you did back in February. And, that hit me back then very early when I saw it and Carol pointed it out. And then when we spoke on the phone, it was this idea of paying it forward. I think everyone loves the idea of that and they think like that. But the reality of, say, societal values and what society thinks we should be doing stops people from always putting that forward. But you did with Rox Queens. And that's straight away, I was like, do you know what? It's a drop in the ocean. Little Willingham in Cambridge, north of Cambridge. It's a drop in the ocean. But if we can do something to help here, we'll do it. Because it might help. It might help inspire one lady to do Hyrox. It might inspire one lady to get off the couch. The result of those two sessions here is nothing near that. It's unbelievable. And I don't mean financial gain here, because there's no financial gain. It's the network, the community, the support. The girls from our gym that attended both of those and met the other Rox Queens that came from outside, and the two trainers that came to those two events. So Michelle and Beck, it was just like unbelievable value what they got. And I just think that's what you were trying to create. And it was amazing to be a very small part of that. And I thought you did something that resonated with me that I did 10 years ago. And I just thought, do you know what? Caitlin can use this space as often as she wants, because you're doing it for the right reasons. And even now, and we'll get onto Rox Queens 2.0 in a minute, but even now, that's still true, and your values are there. And that's why I did it, because it reminded me of me a little bit. And I think the ultimate pay it forward is to not just pay it forward that I started a gym because I was a big guy and I lost loads of weight and I didn't want others to feel what I was feeling. That's why I started my gym. But my coaches come in and I want them to be the best coaches they can be. I want people to develop and learn. So it's not just the clients, and it's not just about that. And you presented something to me that I thought looked very much like the running club that I voluntarily started 10 years ago. It was what I needed. And then I realized there was a gap. So I did it. And we just took it to this level. And as for a local running club now, we're sort of 250 odd members. And on a small scale, it's a local running club that's an England Athletics running club. And it's worked out really well. So it did. And I don't think I'd ever told you that, but that's sort of why we did it and why I did it and the mechanism of it. But yeah, no, it's been amazing to watch this journey so far. So just if we can pick up on anything from that you want, but also you as an athlete within this, there's you being an athlete within this as well. Sort of where did that journey go? You mentioned Worlds a minute ago, which was great. And, we all had a good time at the after party. It's cool. So, but yeah, tell us a bit about that.
Yes. And just, thank you again. Like that story is amazing. And yeah, that's what it's all about. And, we're both obsessed with the problems that we're trying to solve. So yeah, it's great to hear that. And yeah, it means a lot. But yes, my journey. So yeah, I, back in October last year, made it into World Champs through the open route. And I decided, well, I guess everyone has to progress up to pro. So I had 6-7 months to do that, and did that in Nice. And yeah, I've done now I think two or three pros. So I'm still trying to break the 120 mark. That's my goal for this season. I've never had a pro podium. That's another goal that I'm really aiming for. But we'll see. I think I'm going to, obviously now I'm in Bali, so I'm thinking about maybe Auckland or Bangkok next year. But yeah, it's a whole, pro is a whole other thing. Obviously the weights and the standard. But yeah, sort of doing that on the side. But it's hard to balance everything. I probably go through phases where my own training has got a bit deprioritized because of the fact that, you know, as of now, I'm still working my 9 to 5 and I'm building Rox Queens. And so it is challenging to do everything. And so, yeah, I do find that sometimes my personal training, my personal things get put on hold, but I'm really, really, really trying to make an active effort to get that more in balance because, yeah, it's very much like you said, value driven. And so it has to be that I also benefit from this, which was one of the reasons why I did it, as well as wanting to help others as well.
Yeah. So, being in Bali in terms of like competition sort of area, someone we know from Cambridge, have known for years through various channels, but a guy called Maka who's in Bali. I don't know if you would have come across him at all, but he's at one of the Hyrox gyms, and people tend to bump into him if they go to Bali. But he travelled to Hong Kong on major weekend to participate. Where are the sort of easiest Hyroxes to get to for you?
Yeah, so I definitely Asia. Obviously, you've got Australia as well, which is 3 hours away. So they're probably the two. There is an Indonesian Instagram account, which makes me feel like maybe there's one going to be announced soon, which would be epic. And it's an exciting time because it's still quite new, but now, like the main gyms, like one of the gyms here, the sort of biggest space is called Wanderlust. They're opening up a dedicated Hyrox space, huge sled track, and yeah, they're keen to get lots of people down there. Opens next month, so we're kind of part of that. We're going to do some like Rox Queen collabs, things like that. So yeah, it's a really exciting time to be here on the ground. Obviously, a lot of athletes that we know in Hyrox will come out here for hot weather training. Obviously, it's full of people where like fitness here is a lifestyle, and so it's very much like the best. I think the best gyms are here because out here, like it's an experience. Recovery is a big thing. It's again the community, so you sort of ice bath together. You're doing these classes in these amazing spaces, really great equipment, really great trainers. So kind of being around that is really cool. I've already kind of launched Rox Queens out here, so we're sort of building up momentum, which has been great. And there's a lot of people here that kind of come here on holiday. So again, for them, going back to the values of Rox Queens, knowing that you can kind of find similar people no matter where you're traveling to is quite nice, because people always worry about keeping up with their training when they're traveling, but that's quite nice. So that kind of network effect is kind of happening. But yeah, we just have to sort of, take it as it comes. Like in some countries, it's taken a bit longer to get off the ground than others. But I have no regrets. Like lots of people will tell you conflicting ideas about things, and you have to kind of stay true to your gut. So some people were like, stay to the UK, grow it there. But I was like, no, let's like just see what happens. Like just try and grow it as big as we can. So we're trying to do that whilst also building the brand and the momentum. But there's been moments when people recognize the logo, or they've heard about us through a friend, and I think it's just holding on to those moments and trying to build them up.
Yeah, so I've got some questions around that actually. Let's talk about the people that like like Leah and the ambassadors. Let's talk about them, but let's talk about sort of your values as well. You are the founder.
Yes.
Sometimes I know you're the face at times, but you're not always the face that we see now. Just kind of give us some ideas around how that's working. The people, give them a mention as well, of course. But how's that all working now to make sure, like you've just said, you're now seeing how big it can go, and you're over there in Bali. But that doesn't mean you've neglected the UK. In fact, from what we can see from social media, far from it. So yeah, just give us a little bit info into how that's working.
Definitely. So we have a HQ, as we call it, and in there is the local ambassadors. So we have Kim for London. We have Leah, who's been on this podcast, who looks after the Hyrox newbies. We have Nat, who looks after the North. Currently recruiting for a new Irish ambassador. So yeah, that is currently open if anybody's interested. The link is in our bio. And then obviously we have Simon, our Rox King, who kind of helps from an ops standpoint. So we, and in Bali, actually, we have Erin as well. So that's kind of the core team at the moment. And then alongside that, we came to realize that there's people in the community who we wanted to bring on this journey with us, who may not necessarily be sort of managing and running the events and the groups, but very much can kind of be an advocate for what we're trying to do. So you mentioned Carol, like she's one of our MVPs, we call them, and we've got those around the world as well. So that's kind of where we are at, and we sort of have this group, we learn from each other, we kind of work together to figure out like the events that are coming up, and that is very much sort of kind of how we work and how we operate. I'd say maybe a month or two ago, I had a call with them and I wanted to ask if they sort of wanted to take part next season. And I was very open about it, about the fact that I cannot pay, but I just wanted to understand, are they getting enough return? Are they getting, enough kind of exposure, clients, all different things? And I came to the call with ideas about how I could pay them financially, whether that's, through event splits, and I was, it makes me quite emotional because they all quite anonymous, and they all said the same thing. They all were like, we don't want money. That's not why we're in this. You don't need to worry about that. Like, we want to help because of the wider mission. Like, we want to help because, it's helping us to kind of get our name out there and to help more people in our specialism and in our coaching and things. And so that's really special. So that's kind of very much kind of made me realize I have the right team on board to kind of help me with this. So yeah, it's very collaborative. They are specialists in their areas of coaching, so it's very much here's the idea, what do you think, how should we do it? But I guess from a whoever's work, I guess I'm the one that's kind of consistently working on this behind the scenes every day, to kind of take it to where I believe it could be. There's brands like 24/7, I have posters in my flat with I don't know if you saw recently, they do the big run clubs around Manchester and they gather all these people, and that's kind of what we want to create. And I think it's just remembering that as we kind of head towards it.
Yeah, so I mean, 1,000,001 questions, right?
Yeah.
Where do we even unpack this? So let's go with the idea of the events and getting people together. Let's start with that one. Particularly something that stands out to me, other than the events that we hosted and the ones that you've done in London and up north, there was the shakeout run in Nice. So you kind of hosted a shakeout run and had that moment where I think it was Travis Owls that did also been on the show and is now Hyrox ambassador as well for this current season. So when you talk about the 24/7 big runs in Manchester and things like that, that shakeout event was something that I noticed that you did as part of a bigger, wider event around a Hyrox World Championships. So when you talk about events, what's it look like? What's the future? How's that going to work?
Yeah, so we do sort of the monthly events, which are very much focused. There's always a workshop, so about upskilling, bringing in an expert. We listen to what the community want. So people have spoken a lot recently about support with getting quicker on the ergs, or understanding what weight exercises to do to be more efficient. So we do that. And then around races, we have meetups. So in Copenhagen, we all met up and did a tour of the city and went and got pastries. And then, yes, in Nice, we did that shakeout run, which was first time we'd opened it up and got the guys involved, but that was really nice. Kind of celebrating the fact we're all there. We've all got to the world champs, and it's very much, as these events are, open to everybody. So that was pretty cool to all be there together to do the little 5K shakeout run, which was epic. And yeah, I think we are always looking to evolve with the events that we're doing. So again, feedback from the community, being at a race and knowing that Rox Queens are there. So we have merch, we have tattoos, ways to spot people is great. But then having an actual meeting point makes such a difference. So people can kind of unwind, but also kind of, talk through their races with people is really nice. Because I think it's meant to be social, it's meant to be fun. And that's something that we really remind our members because it can sometimes get a bit overwhelming. So that's kind of where the events are going.
Yeah, no, I think you're right. The nail on the head is we might all want to go there and compete, like to do our PBs or to do world champs qualification, for example. But there's so much more to it. A bit like what you said at the beginning with the F45 thing and the community and the idea of that. Actually going to a race, people that don't do Hyrox, that are perhaps getting into Hyrox and listening to this, might think you turn up, do your race, and go home. My experience before the Purple Army kind of really went for it, or before there were the big communities now that you do see, and like yourselves being there at Birmingham, you could pick a Rox Queen out easy at Birmingham. It was great. But like before that, I just thought it was, I'm going to turn up, do my race, kind of enjoy the aftermath like you would if you did a half marathon, and then go home. Well, actually, that's not really the experience that I've had even before a community existed. So you kind of take a bit of interest in what's going on around you. And I think what you said about this idea that there's a meet point for a discussion of, people discuss with their friends that they met through Rox Queens, what they did and how it went. And I think that really adds a lot of value to something that people would probably naturally try and do anyway. But you're just you're giving them a home for that, I guess, or like a group that they're part of and belong to, which I think is really cool. And like I said earlier, like there's many reasons why I decided to let you guys come and use the facility, and one of those was that this is cool as well. But not like cool, like street cred cool. It's just a cool idea that is nice for people to be able to have as part of their Hyrox experience. So yeah, no, I think you hit the nail on the head. And before we move on, because we are going to talk about events, pre-races and races, we're going to do a little bit of London preview. But before we do that, you did mention about when I said about the face, and you're the one that's constantly working on this behind the scenes, but while trying to juggle a job. From experience myself, creating my voluntary running club as a starting point, the amount of hours that I did was huge. So I'm going to make an assumption that you've done the same. And I just want to ask you some specifics around that. When creating the Rox Queens, do you think people, although I don't look for credit for this, but do you think people realize how much time and effort you are putting into this?
Probably not. And I've recently realized that it's probably an oversight. People probably don't realize what goes on behind the scenes, and it's a blessing and a curse. I think people think we're a lot bigger than we are. I've had people bought swag from us and they want to know about like the return system, and there is not one. It's me usually, and it's the same with the ambassadors. Like the amount of support and time that they've put in is unbelievable. But it's what is required, I think, when you're building something and you want to, and you're so committed to kind of taking it to that next level. And yeah, everything from, planning, promoting events, to managing the community, to making sure it's safe. So, one of the things we did was bring in this approval system. Everything was very manual because we were getting bots in the community, so getting them to answer questions, to even managing the Instagram DMs. Like that's something which we all do ourselves, and we obviously get a lot of questions, and trying to making sure that we answer those, and kind of give the right information, all that kind of thing. And I've spoken to you about this, but I think when things go wrong, which is natural and is very much part of the journey, you cannot let that affect the outcome. You know, you do not want the event to not go ahead. You do not want to let that queen down, because you care so much, and they've bought into what we're doing and what we are. So there's been times when, you know, you have to constantly like think on your feet when things, I've had, for example, when we went into Stash, and you know this story, I had t-shirts go missing that were meant to be delivered in time for, I think it was London, back in May, and so I was calling around all different suppliers, and just couldn't get any in London that could turn it around so quick. But this one company said, yeah, we can do it. We can turn it around. You know, we'll have it in 2-3 hours. And it was about maybe 9 or 10 a.m. in the morning. So I was like, perfect. Like, whereabouts in London are you? And they were like, we're in Birmingham. So I was like, great, I'll make my way there. So I did. I went and got the train, and sort of hand delivered these vests, which I don't know if many people know, but that is the level that I have gone. I know the ambassadors will go to make things seemingly run seamless behind the scenes. And yeah, I'm also just grateful to the community, because obviously there is times when things haven't gone wrong and they do understand, but I think I just want them to know, and I'm sure hopefully they do know, that it always comes with the best interest, try to make it work.
Yeah, no, you said like, I don't think anyone is doing it on purpose. I think it is just like subconscious. They're just unaware. They kind of just people don't realize what's going on behind the scenes. But you talk about like maybe weaknesses of that kind of system in those early phases of anything, really, be any organization. But in those early moments when you are getting a train to Birmingham and like doing that, you don't want that person to know, and so you don't tell them. You might tell a story like you have now, but when the criticism comes in, like you mentioned, it's really hard to not take it personally when you're working your ass off and you do things like that, which that person, I'm sure if they now realize it's them, will probably be very grateful for, but you're not doing it for that. We get that. Or the world should understand that that's not what we do it for. But when there is something that goes just slightly wrong, it can really hurt when the people that are meant to understand don't understand. And that's something that I've discovered a lot in the voluntary world and in the paid world as well. You know, when it's a one person band, like essentially, you want it to look and feel as professional as possible, but that's not always possible. And I think, you know, there are stories and there are hours that I'm sure you've put into this that, you know, I'm going to go for, you've had nearly all nighters, Caitlin, as well, to do this sort of stuff, to get it done.
Exactly, especially being in a different time zone now. But coming back onto like the team and the advisors, I think having people in your corner makes such a difference. And one of my advisors, you know, that I really have learned a lot from is Dan Williams, who's the founder of WIT, and kind of spoke to him, and he reminded me to try, as hard as it is, to not take things personally and to take a step back, and to remember that you can't kind of always listen to the consumer. Sometimes they don't know what they want. Sometimes it's very easy to get swayed by a few people and lose focus of the majority. And I've now learned I have to step back a little bit. I cannot be, the size of Rox Queens is so big now that I cannot be in the weeds. And I always think it's good to listen to your community and hear the feedback, but it has to be what's right for the majority. And it also has to be in line with your vision of where you want to take it, because some people might not see that if they're in sort of one subgroup, or they're only seeing a little bit of it. They don't see everything that goes on behind the scenes. So all of those different things and variables come into play, and it's taught me a lot, because you know, you look at the elite 15s and they're very open with their experiences, the highs and lows. Sandy, I think, is a massive role model in this, and you know, he recently shared kind of a bit more what's been going on behind the scenes for his racing journey. And I just think that vulnerability and that relatability is just so important, because people don't see that. They just see the race performance, they just see the socials, and they forget that human side of it. So I think it is really, really important to show that. So yeah, it's something that I'm working on, because it's hard to know how much to show. And it's also hard to know with Instagram how much is smoke and mirrors. You know, you get caught in these comparison cycles, but actually I think a lot of people don't quite know what they're doing, or maybe not everything is as it seems. So yeah.
Yeah, no, I think that last bit is really important and something I agree with. But everything else you've just said, I completely agree with, and is something very much in my journey that I can relate to. And I agree, you have to learn, but you've done that in a very short period of time as well. So well done. I think that you should be proud of that, and hopefully you are proud of that you've managed to get to that level and think of it in that way. So yeah, that's really cool. On that note, because we might cover some of this again now. Rox Queens 2.0. We are here right now, November 2024, pre-London, and just a couple of weeks ago now, I think it was, you shut the WhatsApp group and you started Rox Queens 2.0. I've got some outside, I guess if we were being, disclosing to the listeners and the viewers, a few of my members are members of the Rox Queens, and Carol obviously is part of your wider team. But as a male, I don't have anything invested in this, so I can kind of sit from an objective point of view and look at it. And what you did 2.5 weeks ago or whenever it was, I thought just seemed like the natural thing that was going to happen, and that it should have happened. Because I was thinking about logistics, like, not that it's happened with any of my groups, but I know that WhatsApp has a limit, which I'm sure you'll touch on. But yeah, sort of Rox Queens 2.0. A, what is it? B, how's it going? And C, what's the aim of it?
Yeah, so the community has kind of evolved, and this WhatsApp community, I guess, no longer served logistically what we were trying to do. So you touched on, I guess, the mechanics of it as a platform. So yeah, we'd reached capacity in a lot of the groups, which meant that we were kind of stifled in our growth. And I wanted there to be, sub communities, no matter where you were. If you were a newbie, you could be in one group. But it meant that because of the constrictions of WhatsApp, I had loads of different groups, different country groups. So I was kind of creating a silo effect, which went against what I was trying to do in the first place. It wasn't a very safe platform. We were doing these manual checks, but some bots crept in, and for some people they might not mind that, but for others it's meant to be a safe women only space. And so it was a big deal if a male had entered this space, and it was because of WhatsApp, how it's structured. If you come into the conversation late, you can't see previous messages, so there was a lot of kind of things being repeated, people feeling left out. So this was kind of going on in the background, in amongst kind of how we're evolving, and there's so much value that we have as a community. And I think I've learned now, as much as it's been beneficial and I still want to work with experts externally, we have so much value internally that I want to kind of now celebrate and hone in on, because the ambassadors in and of themselves are, experts. And so we have created this kind of product, this community product now, which allows us, we have a new home that has no barriers in terms of, yes, there's a financial, small financial subscription, which I'll come on to. But outside of that, no matter where you are, you now can join the group chat. So if you're traveling, you're going to races, you can meet people. We now have like a home for resources. So ambassadors every week are adding webinars on topics around like training around your cycle. Carol's done some amazing stretch routines. We have workouts of the week. We now have like ways to compete across the world. So everybody, a bit like Strava, puts up their workouts and tags the different challenges that we do. We have a leaderboard. And we also have on there a race partner directory, because often I'd be asked about helping people match. So I've created like a directory. You put in your races that you want to do, the speed that you want to run at. We help you find a Hyrox coach. We have all the races across the world listed in there. So once you join, you can join a race chat and get to know people there. It's just a way better experience. But I guess now we have moved to subscriptions, which is $4.99 a month, which is about £1.25 a week. We now, for the first time, have some revenue coming in consistently, which allows us to do so much more. And I think for this mission to be successful, not being constantly cash strapped is really key. So, you know, already we're looking to reinvest that money. So I'm looking into like partnerships, which required money up front that we didn't have before, but now I can have those conversations. And we're looking at, you know, all different things that we can do. So it's a really exciting move. I'll be open, as I have been on here. It's a move that some people, I guess, weren't as open to as I'd hoped. You're not going to please everybody. Some people think, finally, we're off WhatsApp. We have that divide from all our other chats. Amazing. Other people prefer WhatsApp. People, you know, were happy to pay the small subscription. Other people see it as an additional cost when Hyrox is very expensive. So I've been navigating those concerns and thinking about how I can address them, whilst also thinking about what we need to do big term. And change is scary for everybody, regardless of what the change is. It had to happen. It was always going to be painful in some capacity. But I hope people can see why we're doing it. And in the long run, and as I'm starting to see, people are starting to trickle through who said, you can just try it. There's no obligation to stay, but at least give it a go and see from there.
Yeah, I think as a coach, we're constantly challenging change all the time. We want people to grow as athletes and as members of our gyms and everything else. So I guess maybe we're quite used to the idea of growth and change, but I think society maybe can sometimes struggle with this idea that we need to pay for something. And, you know, this might be a topic that people wouldn't have wanted to discuss around Rox Queens, but for me, you go to a paid platform and everything you've just said makes a lot of sense. And I can see that. But I think the initial reaction is, oh, someone's getting rich out of this, which I hate about society, because people that invent cool stuff need to at least cover the costs of that cool stuff and probably deserve to get paid as well. But, you know, I think society doesn't allow that. I want to call it like celebration of success. In that sense, we just automatically look at $4.99 and go, oh, my monthly bills. And don't get me wrong, I think we should disclaim here and say, you know, we get there is hardship and people do struggle and they wouldn't want that extra payment. But if you've had a Costa or Starbucks this month, you probably need to question your choices before you have a go at anyone about it. It is what I'm saying. And maybe I'm sticking up for the wider world of subscription-based content and platforms, which the whole world's gone to, whether you're fitness or not. But they're just some thoughts that I have in general about subscription-based things. And as a coach, one of my biggest things is to break down barriers. Now, wouldn't help my men, but my Hyrox hybrid athlete females, you've created a tool for me because I'm a really busy coach, business owner, dad, athlete, all of the above. And I cannot one-on-one work with everyone in my community. And I certainly don't have time to make a platform at the moment. Right. So Rox Queens for our girls is full of resources. So I'm going to say to them, do you know what? If you quit having your Costa once a week, you can definitely afford this. And actually what you'll get from it is X, Y, and Z. And I think sometimes I just feel that people will need to break those barriers down. Has there been any resistance to that? Obviously, you've briefly touched on it, but has there been resistance to the payment schedule?
Yeah, I think money mindset, as you touched on, is a thing in our society. You know, like you said, I think you can not blink about paying for the 2 coffees, but yeah, this added expense is something. And I think I hear it. I know that it's expensive time of year. I know people have a lot of outgoings. I know that Hyrox is very expensive, but like we've spoken about, like we're not a massive organization, so that money just goes so far at the moment and just allows us to do more. I will always listen to the community. I think for some people, they, you know, I fully appreciate that we want to keep it accessible. So I did bring in a different tier for our current queens, which was, you know, I still wanted them to come and be part of the race chats. So I think they were really grateful for that. And I have stressed, like, no matter if you're on the app or you're not, like, you're very much still a Rox Queen, and kind of wanting them to kind of come to events and stuff. So I am trying to make something for everybody. And yeah, I as and when I can, I talk to people, understand their personal situations, or just reinforce the value. And we are really committed to making sure people get their money back and then some, you know, I mean, very much. We've got a huge content schedule for like all the resources. And, you know, there's so much we can do now that we have an app. Like, you know, we now have a place where like partners can kind of promote their deals and things, which is going to be beneficial for the community. So yeah, I think, and I'll be open with you. Like, I have heard, and you know, there's some people who may want to start their own Rox Queen WhatsApp group still. I have heard people wanting to do that, and I struggled with it when I first heard it. Again, it's that taking personally because it goes against what we're trying to do. But at the end of the day, I can't stop it, and I will stay true to Rox Queens now is not a WhatsApp group. We are a community, and the community has evolved. And if you want to be part of that and get all that value, then this is kind of where we are. And we really hope that you'll want to come on that next stage. So that's kind of where I'm at and what I'm working through at the moment. But yeah, just learning as we go. Like, you know, the story of it all is really important. And I hope by being more open about the stuff behind the scenes as well, that's going to help. You know, so
yeah,
that
is raw. That is raw, Caitlin. That is so cool. And you know, what you've just said there is a great lesson to many. And actually, I'll take a lot from what you've just said as well, because, you know, again, we're not. You're not the type of person that wants credit. I'm not like that. We genuinely want to help people. That's the source. We've said that a million times on this show, let alone away from here. And I think what you've just said, though, the idea of these like breakaway Rox Queens WhatsApp groups, just know this. They know each other because of what you created. Mm-hmm. Now, although that's giving you direct credit for it, it's not about being egotistical or anything like that. It's just you've made an impact on someone in a positive way. So if that WhatsApp group still is positive for them, then you're the source of that, and that's how it starts. And hopefully you can take something from that. That's something I had to tell myself when I went through what I think you've just been through with that kind of thing. It's hard to hear and it's hard to take at times, and you kind of you don't understand it, but then eventually you evolve and grow and you realize actually there's a positive to everything, right? That you can put the silver line on everything. But I think the way you said it about you guys are not a WhatsApp, you are now a community with this home, this host, this system. And, you know, I've been privy enough to have a quick look and it looks awesome. It looks absolutely brilliant. So hopefully you feel proud of that. And Rox Queens 2.0, as you've just released it, as the marketing for it, I think, what's the future for like the app to do what you've done so far and just grow it like that?
Yeah, so we're learning so much as we go, and I think, like, you know, that is kind of part of this. So the resources that are on there at the moment are what we think people want. We're thinking about the races that are coming up, so, you know, what people need around that. You know, things like the race directory came about because we were getting so many messages trying to match make queens, things like that. So I think that's going to evolve. I think now I'm really excited just to scale it up, because we no longer have those barriers, and to get people meeting across the world, because that's something that people probably don't have access to at the moment. You know, you have your local gym, and you meet people, but getting that kind of wider exposure, I think, is going to be really, really powerful. And we've got some of the Elite 15 in there, Camilla, Becca. So I think, again, having a space where it doesn't matter where you are in the world or where you are on your journey, having this one home and no longer silo conversations is great. And then the next phase, this kind of meeting offline, this recognizing a queen, it's very much front of my mind, and how I can help, to kind of instigate that. So if you haven't got Stash on the app now, we've set it up that you create an actual profile. So it's very much about like not just a WhatsApp photo, it's kind of understanding who this person is, their interests, like speed dating, for Rox Queens, things like that. But I think having the more in-person stuff's going to be really impactful. And yeah, so that's kind of where we're at. And again, it's just problems that I've encountered. Like the resource hub also came about because, like we said, social media is overwhelming. It's hard to know when to follow things. I think the structure of it might evolve. It may be that you have programs that you can follow in a certain time frame. Ticket swap is an ongoing thing, Neil, that I am trying to figure out because it's the bane of my life. Yeah.
But again, wouldn't you go to a trusted community to do that?
Exactly.
Before you went anywhere else. So, for example, just in house here, what we do is we kind of it's an unwritten rule, but the guys all know it. If you're dropping out, you offer to our gym first before you stick it on that Facebook page. So it gets offered to all our members first so that they can get in if they didn't get one, but now they're ready, sort of thing. And we would much rather trust that process. So that could work for you really well. And that's really cool. And then if we go away from the app, if that was the app, the big picture, do you have a dream? All of that, what is Rox Queens? There was something you said earlier, and I've written down here. Could it be a venue? Could there be a place in London, in New York, could it be I was going to say gym, but not necessarily, but what is the future?
I think this is the next phase is Rox Queen House, a clubhouse, whether it's a pop-up at race venues, like having what we're creating online, if we can then create that in person and have the two kind of working together, would be pretty special. So that's on the horizon. Obviously, we've just launched in new markets. We're trying to get our name out there in Europe. We're trying to get into kind of Saudi as well. We've got a lot of work to do in Australia, so that's kind of all happening. And part of that is also figuring out how we localize the brand. Because there's nuances in terms of the look, the feel, even like the content, just to figure out how that works. So that is the plan. I'm really excited. But I just think through all of this, in the same ethos, like why not? Like why not just push it to see where it could go? And one of, I think there's being a female founder and there's a lot of women that I look up to in the space, but there's still a big gap of kind of similar communities, and so I feel like maybe we can be the one to kind of fill that. So yeah, we shall see.
Yeah, I mean, I certainly don't know everything, but I've got some experience in building stuff like communities and stuff, and don't take your foot off the accelerator. Just keep going. I think keep pressing that accelerator. I think there's times where I've taken my foot off at the wrong time, and that was bad. The impact we could be having now would be so much bigger, but we took the foot off. And you take your foot off because you've got this or because you've got that. Don't do it. Just keep pressing that accelerator and go for it, because I think what you're creating is cool. And there is a gap. Like, as much as it's 2024 and the way the world is now and wants to be, women and fitness, why the barriers are still there, I can't work it out. But a safe place is really important. And the majority of our membership is women, so we kind of get to hear those things quite often. But I think maybe people don't realize that feedback that you can, you probably get it all the time. The kind of feedback that you do get.
Exactly. And I think people race alone. And I think maybe that's underestimated, the amount of people that don't have supporters that go to these races. And so just knowing that you have like other people there on race day to cheer you on, to take photos of you, like it can make such a difference. And knowing that they're like, obviously you got that support online, but they're in person is really good. And yeah, I totally agree what you said about the acceleration. We're not the only ones in this space. There are people who are starting to I wouldn't say copy, but I would say that there's some similarities coming about. So I'm using that as fire to kind of hone in on what we have and to kind of stay true to what we are doing. But there's there's a few communities calling Hyrox girls queens, so we have to kind of think about what we do then. That what makes their queen different to a Rox queen is a challenge that I'm taking on into the new year for sure.
Yeah, awesome. And then just to finish this episode, if we can, is as we record, we are a few days out from London. Well, F45 London XL is the official term. So we've got a 3-day event in London coming up, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. It's probably going to be the biggest the world has ever seen so far in terms of numbers, and Rox Queens are there. Tell us a little bit about the process, what's happening specifically this weekend, and how you've got there to be there this weekend and how it's going to go.
Yes. So there's about 150, 200 of us, I'd say, which are heading to London, which is amazing. And on Thursday night, everybody is welcome. We're doing, there's the shakeout run that's happening around pre-reg at 6 o'clock with My Protein. And so we are jumping in on that with Jake Williamson's community, BTND. And we're going to do that run, join in. And then following that, we're going for shakes nearby to kind of create this pop-up hub that we've been speaking about. So we'll be all there on the ground to kind of answer any last minute questions, but I guess have that support and kind of build up that excitement for the weekend ahead. In addition to that, we have race groups which are available. I'll make sure they're linked in our Instagram bio to join in if you want to meet people, not just who are doing London, but who are competing on your actual race day. So lots of people in that, which is great. And yeah, just kind of want to build up the hype from that. And I know that you guys are going to be there as well. So really excited to see you. It's the last kind of, big event of the year. So it's very much a celebration of, getting everyone there, what they've achieved, seeing all our friends come together. So really excited about that.
And when you say everyone's welcome, just to be clear, that's men and women for the shakeout run.
It is,
they can come and do it.
Yeah. And just kind of very much with the run itself, obviously, that we're jumping in on, it's very much like a 5K at your pace. But
so is the pre-registration being done again? Because Hyrox haven't released it big time. I'm sure there's an email out there, but is it Sports Direct or is it F45?
Yeah, we've heard it's going to be around that area. So around Oxford Circus area. So that's kind of where we'll be. I think, just trying to be part of what's going on and very much part of that will be great. But yeah, we've got ambassadors there on the ground as well. So would love to see as many people there as possible.
Yeah, no, we unfortunately, I think with it being my son's first birthday, I'll be unable to come and cover it. I was hoping to come and be part of it with the podcast and kind of chat to some queens as well. But as this is a preview section, it would be good to say to any Rox queens out there, you probably can't miss us because we're in purple and I'll be in purple. Come and have a chat with the podcast. We're going to do like an on location episode this time. Had some success previously, but it'd be really good to get some queens on there to have a chat about the Rox Queens and what's going on with you guys at that event. That'd be really good. We've actually got professional camera crew with us as well. So we're going to try and make it quite a big deal. And it'd be good to understand Rox Queens on the ground, if that makes sense, in the moment. Everything you've just said, it'll probably be very clear to people like me what's going on there, but it'd be great to get some reaction from Rox Queens. So it'd be great if they could come and have a chat for sure. and I'll stick a camera in your face and a microphone, and we'll get talking about your Hyrox experience and your Rox Queens experience as well. So that'd be cool. Last question then. Ladies looking to get into Hyrox, ladies looking to become part of Rox Queens, what are the top tips and how are they going to do it?
Yes. So I think getting into Hyrox, I definitely think being part of a community, whether it's Rox Queens, whether it's through your gym, is a no-brainer for just having that support, and just knowing that, like, if it's your first time, there's going to be other people there that can kind of be on that journey with you. Knowing that you're not alone, I think, is really, really key. And just having fun, and just, like, it's an excuse to travel. So, if you've always wanted to go, there's a Hyrox in every city now. Why not make a weekend of it? Get your friends, get your partner involved. And I think, that's what it is. That's what we all love about it, right? And kind of then you figure out which cities you like, which races you like. And then, for Rox Queens, we are very much an open place. So always will say, if you want to give us a go, why not? If you have any questions, feel free to DM us on Instagram. We are here for all your advice, whether it's trainers, whether it's coaches. No question is silly. So yeah, here to help, and just excited for you. I mean, you and I, we all share a passion for this sport. So everyone I meet who does it feels the same. So kind of come into the family.
Yeah, no, awesome. And then, sorry, just one more. You personally, your goals for this season, what's the aim, Caitlin?
My aim is to get my first pro podium, and to make my way to Worlds in Chicago. So that's kind of what I'm working on in the background. I did Korea last month. I got really close, but it's all strategic now, Neil. Like, I think loads of people went there, flew in for the same reasons that I did. So I don't think I was racing with anybody that lived there. Yeah. So yeah, that's on the horizon. And I'm hoping in the new year to kind of get that ticket to Worlds. It's very hard nowadays, harder than ever to get it, but that means that we fight harder. So yeah, that's the plan.
No, awesome. So thanks very much, Caitlin. It's been very insightful, and I was probably asking the questions from knowing a little bit but not all of it, and it's been great to hear all of those ins and outs of Rox Queens. So thanks for coming on the show, really appreciate it.
Thank you so much. Yeah.
To all those people that have watched, listened, wherever it is you're getting this podcast, if you would want to know a little bit more about Rox Queens, we're going to share the handle for your Instagram in the bio of the episode as well, so people can find you there. Do you allow people to follow you on a personal level as well, Caitlin?
Of course, yeah, they can do. Yeah.
Where can they find that?
So yeah, it's Caitlin Robbins on Instagram. So yeah, definitely follow along. Anything that you need, do reach out. And yeah, thank you, Neil, again for having me, but also for all the support. You've kind of been there from the beginning. So yeah, appreciate you.
You're welcome, and it's been great to see the journey as well. And I look forward to the future part of the journey. So for anyone who's listened today, watched, if you like the episode, please put a like, please put a comment. Please tell us what you thought. Please ask any questions that you want answered in the future, and any Rox Queens questions as well. I'm sure Caitlin's going to keep across the episode, so she'll be able to hopefully answer those for you. If there's anyone out there, ladies and gents, who you think wants to hear about this or needs to hear this, share it with them as well, because it would be great for this to spread and stay in line with Caitlin's idea of paying it forward and helping others for sure. So on that note, just want to say thanks again, Caitlin. Thanks to everyone who has listened and watched. And I hope to meet you all here again to discuss more on the Rox.